Sean is, without a doubt, the finest jeweler that I've ever had the privilege to work with. During the early 1990s, Sean came to work for me. Now, as you know, in the 1990s, platinum was not nearly as popular as it is today. So I asked Sean, do you know how to work on platinum? Have you ever worked on platinum before? And he said, uh-huh. Now I got excited when he said that. You see, as you know, bench jewelers are very reserved and quiet for the most part. We're very introverted. We don't get real excited about things. Why, if you ask the typical bench jeweler if they like what they're doing, the response would be, uh-huh. And you say, no, I mean, do you really like working on jewelry? Would you rather work at the bench than any other job in the world? And they would say, uh-huh. And you'd say, no, if you like it so much, can't you say uh-huh with a little more enthusiasm? And they would say, uh-huh, with a little more enthusiasm. You see, that's just the way bench jewelers are. So when Sean said, uh-huh, I got excited. I said, great, here's a platinum ring I need to have you size. And he took the job, rolled his eyes towards the heavens, and tossed it aside on his bench. Now I walked over to my bench, picked up my welding goggles, handed them to Sean and said, these are the only goggles I have. Next time I'm out, I'll get you a pair. Well, Sean took my welding goggles and he didn't say anything but went on with his work. A little while later, I heard Sean exclaim, wow, this is great! Now you gotta admit, that's quite an exclamation to hear from a bench jeweler. So I said, Sean, what's so great? And he said, working on platinum using welding goggles. And I said, Sean, I thought you said you worked on platinum before. And he said he had. And I said, how could you work on platinum if you've never wore welding goggles before? And he said, this is what I would do. I'd get the ring all ready to solder. And then I'd take a little piece of solder and wedge into the seam, take my torch and start to heat it up. And when the ring got so hot that he could not stand to look at it any longer, he'd close his eyes and count to 10. He'd remove the torch, let the ring cool down, open his eyes up, and see if the solder had flowed properly. If it had not flowed, he'd heat it back up. When it got hot, he couldn't look at it any longer. He'd close his eyes and count to 15. And if that didn't work, he'd count to 20 or 25 or 30, however long it would take to flow the solder. Within just a few weeks of Sean learning how to properly work on platinum, he was doing some of the most beautiful platinum work you'd ever seen. Now, I mean, if you learned how to work on something with your eyes closed, just imagine what you can do with them open. And not only was he doing finer quality work, he was also increasing productivity. Just imagine how much time Sean was wasting closing his eyes trying to get the solder to flow when he sized a platinum ring. You see, we've all heard the statement, what you don't know won't hurt you. But I want to tell you, nothing can be further from the truth when it comes to business. What you don't know can have a detrimental effect on the business, on your career, and definitely on your productivity. How many times are you and I like Sean, where we try to accomplish a task, we set a goal for ourselves, we try to do a job, and we fail because we did not know there was an easier, faster, or better way to accomplish our task. Many times we are not productive in the shop. Many times we're not successful because we don't know what it is we need to know in order to be successful or more productive. You see, the great American industrialist